Well, hello everyone. Last time I recorded, I had a little bit of camera trouble. Really hoping I got it fixed this time. But it's been a couple weeks and here I am back. There has been quite a few things going on here. I know I don't talk about it a lot, but I am currently in school and I am just coming to the end of a class, so I have a final on Monday. And so over the last couple of weeks, that has definitely translated into a little bit more studying and honestly a massive desire to start so many projects. For the most part, I have been resisting, but it is everything from, ooh, let's make another toy, let's start another pair of socks, oh, you should start a whole nother sweater, look at that blanket pattern, to even just, you know, we should go out and buy a whole sweater's worth of yarn. We'll find the pattern for the sweater later. Just go out and buy the yarn. And it's taken a lot of willpower. But so far I've been mostly resisting and just pushing through on a lot of projects that I've been really wanting to work on. Trying to get to a certain point in most of them before I start the next one. So I guess we should just get into it. I have 2 finished objects, one of which I started and finished. It's really the only impulse project I started, but I'm sure you'll understand why. And then I'm counting 4 knit and crochet projects sitting around me that are works in progress. And I even did a little bit of spinning, and I do have a project to frog that we will talk a little bit about. So, first, super easy, I have a finished pair of socks. We'll see how well the colors pick up. Nope, not very. So these are actually crocheted socks. It's using a pattern from Alt Knots and using knitted Niceties Grandma's Afghan color. It was part of a sock set that came with another little silver mini skein that I elected not to use. These socks are actually for my child. She really wanted them in time for her spring concert for choir in May, and they will actually be done in time for her upcoming concert in a couple of weeks in April. So she is very excited to have them because who doesn't want to have rainbow socks? My colors are not necessarily picking up really well. The way that these socks pooled, I definitely like, if you see like up in the cuff, where I was going back and forth, up and down, you can see a different kind of pooling. And then in the heel, it kind of goes circular. And then here, you'll get like these big old chunks. And then these smaller cycles. It was definitely unexpected, because I kind of expected it to be more of a consistent kind of pooling, like you will frequently get with these kind of hand-dyed yarns. But instead, they're just such inconsistent sizes, and I actually really loved the way that turned out. So you will see yarn like this again coming up very soon, because I have another child who has been promised a pair of socks out of very similar yarn, or technically identical, just from a different skein. Those socks will be different because these socks are crocheted. The other socks I'm doing are going to be knitted, and that is part of how I'm planning on knowing whose socks are whose when they're being washed. So, crochet pattern from Alt Knots and yarn from Knitted Niceties in the color Grandma's Afghan. The other little project I did, you will see a little bit more about this entire line, but this is my new friend. I have made a whole bunch of tiny stuffies from this designer before. Let me get her name off because I am blanking. There we go. Carla Mitrani. I was going to talk about this book a little bit later during acquisitions, but it just makes more sense to do it now. This is the second book in the series, which is why it's More Crochet Iconic Women. I have the first book. I made every single doll in it, and I loved it. And then right as I was getting to the end of the book, I started deciding I wanted to make more wearables, so it kind of worked out that I made them all. But I even then started kind of adapting her patterns to make some of my own. So I had even already made my own version of a Mary Shelley, but the tiny version of Frankenstein. When I first saw this book, I had originally planned on first making Dolly Parton, and then I saw the tiny Frankenstein. And while he is not technically an iconic woman, he was smaller than the other projects in there, so I was able to knock him out very fast, and he makes me so happy. So, if you have not seen these books before, the designer is Carla Mitrani. I believe she's on Etsy and on Instagram under Amour Fou. I will link it down below, but that's part of why my brain is going back and forth between the two names, because I know that her Instagram and Etsy name is different than the name on her books. Let me see if I can get you another really good picture of the dolls that are in here. You will see these dolls come up. Dolly Parton will absolutely be made very, very soon. I'm not actually a country music fan, but I am very much a Dolly Parton fan. She is just an amazing human being. And I need her in doll form. And honestly, I will probably make another Frankenstein, because while I have made my own version of Mary Shelley, I will be making her version of Mary Shelley as well, possibly more than once, because one of my children has already asked me to make them a Mary Shelley. Other than Dolly Parton, I'm not sure what order I'm going to make these guys in, and it's not going to be very fast because, as you will see in a moment, I have a lot of other projects going. But More Crochet Iconic Women, one of my new acquisitions. I was going to bring it up later with acquisitions, but as you can see, I've already created an item from this. I tend to make these dolls using Knit Picks palette. Their skin tones are definitely not perfect because they are not designed to make dolls, but I like the size that it ends up being when I use it. I like the way that it works up for these dolls. And since these are just like, for me, they're display, my daughter will sometimes play with them, but they're not like going everywhere with her. So the fact that they are wool dolls, like these ones, I make them for me. They don't need to be cleaned in the same way they would need to be cleaned for a child. And so while their skin tones aren't perfect, which, I mean, perfect for Frankenstein right now, finding skin tone yarns is already not easy. I tend to just accept that my dolls will not have perfect skin tones, but the palette collection does have so many other colors. So I just kind of accept that the skin tones are going to be more of like cartoon versions. So they may be a little bit too pale or a little bit too dark, not with the natural look of an actual skin tone. Let's just take a quick sip. So those are my only two finished objects over the last 2 weeks. It really kind of felt like it should have been more, but maybe it was just because I wanted to work on so many things. But with extra studying, and part of my attending school also means field work. I got a whole bunch of field work time over the last couple of weeks. So that definitely affects what I'm working on. Doesn't mean I haven't worked on anything. So I am actually very close to finishing these. These are a pair of socks. Sorry, I meant to turn them the other way around before I started. I know that a lot of people don't seem to work on their socks this way. I don't know why. When I work in the round, I like to kind of work in the back with my other needles towards me. It just makes them easier to hold. But it also means that my worked in the round projects are usually inside out, which doesn't bother me, but when I'm going to show them, it definitely makes it look a little bit different. So these are just a vanilla pair of socks. I did a 2x2 rib at the top. Oh my goodness, it looks so weird in the focus today. And then a German short row heel. I decided to try adding a couple extra stitches So I did 64 stitches in the round, but when I came down to the heel, instead of working half of that and doing the heel with 32 stitches, I think I bumped it up to 36 stitches because I really like that deeper heel that you can sometimes get. It's one of the reasons why I do tend to go for a heel flap and gusset, because you can just make the heel flap a little longer to get a bigger heel easily. But I like working the short rows. I feel like it looks very nice and it has a good shape. So I would like to find a way to make that a easy option for me. So I'm hoping making the heel take more than half the stitches will do that. I've got my little light bulb markers to just make sure I'm keeping my socks even. And then I'm actually all the way down to the toe. I do tend to work my socks in tandem, so that means I actually have the other sock also ready to do the toe right now. I will usually do like the ribbing and the ribbing, then the leg, then the leg, then the heel, and then when I get to the foot, I will kind of go back and forth. So like, these tend to be car knitting for me, where I will like get down to work early and I'll have a little bit of time on my lunch break and I will just sit there and put out a few rounds. So like, I will do Monday this sock, Tuesday this sock, Wednesday this sock, Thursday this sock when I get down to the foot, so that when I finish one foot, the other foot is not that far behind it. So because I'm down to the toes, I will probably just be finishing these this weekend instead of putting them back into my car, and then I will cast on a new pair of socks for car knitting. I just really like making socks, and they work really well as a mobile project for me, especially since, for the most part, I am perfectly happy with vanilla socks. I have a few more complex patterns that I am going to be working on, but I mean, they're socks. If I have a beautiful yarn, I usually don't feel the need to have a very complex pattern. This yarn, as I talked about last time, definitely pooled a little bit different. This is Hedgehog Fibers on the twist sock base, and it is in the color Potluck. It's an 80 BFL, 20% nylon. I have never made socks using BFL before, so I was really looking forward to it. I mean, I'm enjoying working on them. I don't instantly notice that it's a different kind of wool, but I am very curious how it will wear with a different kind of wool. So if you look at the socks, I don't know how well the colors are going to pick up. You can really see, like on this side, there's a lot of blues and purples. You can kind of see a little bit down here. That is really more of what the other side of the socks is, where it's a lot of oranges and reds and greens. And I really liked the color in the skein. Let me see if you can really see any left with, oh, I'm all twisted up. I mean, when you look at it, it has, oh, my light is just not picking this up right now. There we go. There's a lot of greens and blues, and it really just made me think almost of like neon light somewhere. This yarn originally kind of made me think of the Electric Mayhem from the Muppets, where you had kind of those reds and oranges that were within their color, their clothing, and are just kind of a classic Muppet color, but also like bright colors like you would see on the neon lights in the set around them. But as they've worked up, they're kind of like these half and half socks where it's like northern lights almost on one side and then a forest on the other, and I really didn't expect it, and I did go back and forth with should I pull these out because of the way that it's pooling, but I do think I like it. I think I'm going to be perfectly happy with them being kind of quirky like that. I'm down to the toes on two socks. I'm not pulling them out at this point. So these are a pair of vanilla socks with German short row heels. I'm going to be just doing a rounded toe, and next time we speak, they will definitely be done. They should be done this weekend because it's so close to the finishing. I will finish these. Using Hedgehog Fibers in the color Potluck. So the next project I have is a crochet project. I have been working on 2 2 year-long make-alongs, a crochet and a knit one. Both of them are technically mysteries. This one is the Alt Knots Stitch and Scream crochet along, and it is to make a blanket by the end of the year. I am now on March. I've been keeping up with both of these a little bit better than I expected, though we'll talk about the other one in a minute. This month's stitch is the Grit Stitch, and ooh, that picks up so well on there. So as you can see, let's see if I can point to it, there's a little line there. So I have been using Wander acrylic yarn, partially because I have a bunch of it, and so there was already some for me to just go ahead and grab. Each month is going to be a different square of this blanket, and my plan was to make each of the 12 months a completely different color. Wander is decently inexpensive. It is very, very soft, and it's easy to come by, so I can easily make each one a different color. If I need more, I can usually get more. These ones were already in my stash, and you can see that line down the middle of it so well in the camera. So this is in the color Snow. I already happen to have some in my stash. I had 3 balls. It's probably more of like 2.5, but each of these squares is needing, the square that needed the most needed about 2.5 balls, so I'm aiming to have at least 3 balls of each color. And I saw I had 3 in the color Snow, so I was like, perfect, let me just throw that in. I put it in the little cauldron I have and just pop it in like that. Didn't really pay attention. Finished the half ball I had, and that is when I noticed it's not picking up quite as well here. Oh, maybe a little bit. So 2 of them have this slightly more tan tone to them, and then one is a little bit more of like a bright clean snow. And I was already in it. I already had enough. I really liked the way that the pale color would go into it. So it kind of left me with that, well, what do I do now? Do I rotate these 2 every other row and see if that makes it less obvious? Do I go with the next one that is the same color and hope I don't need this one? Or do I put this one in the middle so it kind of looks intentional, like I wanted it to have that striped look? And if I wasn't sure if I'd need the 3rd ball, I probably would have just gone and hoped that I never had to touch this one. But because I was pretty sure I would need all 3, I decided to stick it in the middle. That way it kind of looks intentional. Which, I mean, it kind of is, but I didn't pick having a slightly different shade on purpose. And since I only had 3 balls of this, I didn't really have a lot of a choice. I mean, I could have pulled everything out and done a completely different color, but I didn't want to. So each row is just big enough. I mean, you can kind of see it's about as long as my pinky. So if I tried to do every single row to do, you still would have seen those little stripes. It still would have been obvious, and it would have looked like I was trying to hide it. And while I was really hoping it wouldn't be as obvious as it is, I'm also looking at the grand scheme of this blanket. There's going to be 12 squares. Some of them, she said, will be 2 colors, so I'm hoping that this will not be what stands out to me in the blanket, and if at the end of the day it is, I can always just make another one for this square. I can go back, look at it again, and redo it. So this is March's square in the Alt Knot Stitch and Scream using the Grit Stitch. Alright. So I have 2 other works in progress to talk about. We'll go ahead and get into my next year-long make-along. Sorry, my brain just shorted out. This is the Advertence year-long mystery knit-along from Expression Fiber Arts. And I am using So Happy Jane Happy Hand Dyed Yarn Club yarn colors. So each month I get a new one, and I'm actually working a little bit behind. So this started in January. This blue is actually from December. This darker color is from January, and this green is from February. So the green section is part of the March section, but the color came from the February box, if that makes any sense. It doesn't technically matter which month it came from. I'm not sure if you can get these colors individually from So Happy Jane, but most months she usually does have at least a few spots available in her subscription service. So if you're interested in them, you can really see some of the colors that are coming out. So in the Advertence shawl, it is mosaic knitting, which I had never done before. And I've got my little stitch marker, which shows last time we spoke, I had just finished the February section, which was right here. And so with the green, that introduces the March section, which is in a 14-row repeat. And so this is the first 14 rows, and then the next 14 rows. I guess it's technically a 28-row repeat, but it's each section is 14 rows. And you do the 14, and then the next section is supposed to be the same basic style, but the colors are reversed. So coming from here will be different. I haven't done it yet, so I'm not sure. My intention was to do the first 28 rows last weekend when I started this, but intentions are sometimes better than actions. So I do feel like I'm a little bit behind because I need 5 of these 14-row sections to complete the month, and I've done 1, and we are now on the 18th of March. So I definitely feel a little bit behind, but even if I get a little bit behind, I know that technically speaking it will be okay because this is a year-long make-along. So, I mean, if I completed this entire month section today, that just means it's going to sit there and wait for the next section to be released. So if I want it to be something where I can work on it a little bit every weekend and kind of have it as slightly almost meditative work, then being a little bit behind just means I'm not going to run out of work to do on it. I'm not sure if I believe what I'm saying right now, but that's what I'm trying to tell myself. So here is what I have so far. I'm definitely liking the way it's going up, and I'm liking that I'm using colors from a subscription box, which means I kind of don't know what's coming each time, but because I'm a little bit ahead, like this color came from a box a month ahead, I already know what the next color I'm going to put in is because I have the yarn already, and that also means that the moment that the next section of the pattern is ready, I have my yarn, I'm ready to go. I can look and see if I like the way the next color is going to blend in as it keeps going, and then if I want, I can easily change it out. But because it's coming from a subscription box and because each month a different bit of section is coming out, this is definitely not a project to do if you are really, really into being in control of everything. Because there's a lot of things that I can't control with this, and I'm trying to look at that as a good thing. Most of the time I'm just enjoying the ride. You can also see my little coffee needle minders. Yeah. But yeah, this is the Advertence shawl from Expression Fiber Arts using yarn from the So Happy Yarn Club from So Happy Jane. Everything will be linked below. I'm just trying to really make sure that if I actually say it, I'm getting it correct. So that, not as much progress as I would have liked on that, but still making progress, so it's still a good thing. So the last project that I have as a work in progress before I show my spinning is a sweater. It is the Elizabeth sweater from Hobbii. Sorry, my brain. As I mentioned, I'm getting ready for a final, so much of my brain has been devoted to studying. Apparently, knitting, as you can see, it's mostly simple projects I'm working on. So this is the Elizabeth sweater. It is a top-down raglan sweater from Hobbii Yarn. I will link below. It is a paid-for pattern, part of their Hobbii Plus patterns. They do have a lot of free patterns. This one just happens to not be one of them. And I am using more Wander acrylic yarn. I happen to have a sweater's quantity of this. This is in the color Midnight. I don't feel like the light is really doing the colors that I have justice today. This is definitely like a dark blue, but it's dark and bright, if that makes sense. Like, it's a deep, deep color, but there's those shiny, bright undertones to it. I'm very excited about this color. I've had a sweater's quantity of this yarn just kind of sitting around with the intention of making a sweater. And as I mentioned last time when my camera was dying, I decided to challenge myself a little bit this year by doing a bunch of projects that I don't always do. So some of the things I have this little randomizer wheel. Some of the things in it are things that I would do regularly anyways, like socks. I'm always making socks. I have made several sweaters, but with the randomizer, it kind of gives me that, this is what you're making now, make it. And so at least once a month, I am trying to spin the wheel and find a project that fits within that. It is part of how I ended up making the joggers I made previously. It is part of how I ended up making my little Highland cow, because he's adorable and I had kind of wanted to make him, but I hadn't gotten around to it. So with this randomizer, as soon as something comes up, I now have to find a project that fits it. And so I had actually kind of been thinking back and forth about making another sweater, but it is now mid-March. Theoretically, I don't need sweaters. And I may not be able to wear this until next year, but I'm still having so much fun working on it. And as you can see, I've made a decent amount of progress. So I started up at the top. And you can see right here where I've split for the sleeves. I just have them sitting on short cords. I could have put them on yarn, but I figured if I have them sitting on the cords, then that will be a little bit easier when it's time to actually work it. And I just started working on the body. So that's how far onto the body I am. So only a couple inches. The pattern on the model kind of shows it as slightly cropped. I tend to be a little bit longer in the torso and not as likely to wear crop tops, so I'll probably add a couple extra inches. But yeah, there's not a lot to say on it because it's a very simple, most of it's stockinette. I am planning on doing like full sleeves, everything, and I'm very excited because it's an acrylic yarn. It will work very well for me to wear to work. I feel like you're getting a little bit better color when I hold it like this, where you can see that while it is dark, there's still some brightness to it. I don't know why it's catching the light just like this. But yeah, I really do kind of want to make myself a sweater using 100% wool, maybe even hand-dyed wool. I don't know why I have a massive desire to go out and buy a sweater's quantity of Hedgehog Fibers Tweedy. I've just been seeing it with the little bright colored Tweedy bits in there, and I've been really wanting to go out and buy enough and make a whole wool sweater, but it is March. I don't have a pattern, and theirs is not necessarily like the cheapest yarn I could get, especially when I already have about 3 sweaters quantities worth of yarn. And for me, I do work with children. I have children, and I spill things. So acrylic yarn is sometimes the best option for me if I want to be able to wear it regularly. So this one I will be able to wear to work. and the building I work in, it's always either too hot or too cold. So having a sweater is not a bad thing. Even in the middle of the summer, I may still be wearing this at work. And I won't have to worry about if we do any painting, if we have an issue that day. Some of the children I work with are potty training, and you would think that that would not get on your sweaters, but sometimes you would be wrong. So having this acrylic sweater is actually going to be very nice for me. And I'm hoping to finish it soon to be able to still wear it like outside before it gets too warm, but I do want it to get warm, so I'm not going to be too upset if it gets warm instead of me being able to wear a sweater. So again, that is the Elizabeth sweater from Hobbii Yarns using Wander Acrylic in the color Midnight. Alright, so I took a moment and moved around what was near me. So the last thing that I have that counts as a work in progress is I did do a little bit of spinning. I definitely tend to do a little bit more spinning if I am stressed. There's absolutely something about the rhythm of my spinning wheel that is so soothing. I don't know if it's just sitting there working the pedals, if it's the spinning. A long time ago I took pottery a little bit. I really missed that. One of these days I'm going to do it again. And that kind of gave some of the same movement. So I feel like it's a little bit of the wheel and of the smoothing of, in pottery, the smoothing of the clay. In spinning, the smoothing of the wool into a yarn. It's definitely one of those things where you sit there and your brain is chattering and then you... So while I'm preparing for my final, it was definitely one of those good times to pull out the wheel. A lot of the fiber that I spin comes from Paradise Fibers. Both of the ones that I spun recently did come from Paradise Fibers. One of the reasons a lot of them come from there is I have been getting a Fiber of the Month subscription from them for several years. I love the mystery of it. You will actually see my current month in my acquisitions. This one that I have, I'm not sure how well it's going to pick up because we know I have focusing issues. This is from a past month. I have my little card here, but I don't remember if it says what month. It does not. But this is, here it is. The theme of the month that I got this one in was Party Dino. It came with a little like T-Rex stitch marker. He's so adorable. And it came with the recommendation of making desk dinos. So I fully intend to make a little dinosaur out of this guy at one point. He is currently just a single ply. So he's been resting on the spool. I'm going to be getting him ready to turn him into a 2-ply. And then hopefully into a dinosaur very soon. I may or may not use the same pattern they have here. It will really depend on how much wool I actually end up with, because I definitely want to make sure I end up with enough to make the full dino. The color on this was Riddle, and it is a merino, bamboo, and tweed blend. It was about 3 ounces that they sent me of this color. So theoretically I should be able to get a little dino out of it, and I'm anticipating him being adorable. So I have one spool of these. I usually, in cases like this, I will take it off of the spool and I'll usually like cake it up, and then I will ply it back on itself from the inside and the outside. I do that when I have a small amount. I would like to get a little bit better at like chain plying, where I could just do it straight off of this. I have seen tutorials on it. I have tried it. I was awful at it. So it's one of those where I would like to get a little better at it, but because I'm actually planning on making something with this one, this is not a fiber I don't care anything about. I need to get one that is like extra fiber I can play with on that. The other fiber I did a little bit of spinning on. I just started this one last night. This one I did not come in a Fiber of the Month. This one I ordered a while ago. It is a Merino Sea Cell blend in the color Cassiopeia. So this is some of the unspun. I ordered 8 ounces at the time, so I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I have a ton. And I can see on here the same problem I had when I ordered it. All of this, what looks like white on the camera right here, that is actually a very light mint green. So when I first ordered it, I thought it was just a bunch of white with bits of red and pink and black through it. And then I got it and I saw that all of that right there, there is little bits of white, but most of that is a minty green. And it's not that I don't like it, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So it ended up just kind of sitting in stash. It's probably been in stash for like 2 years. And then I decided I wanted to spin last night, but I had finished my green spool already, and I just kind of reached into a basket of stash, pulled this out, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll work on that. I do like the mint green. It just, like I said, it was not what I expected it to be when I ordered it, so it threw me off a little bit. And here, I think it's going to keep trying to focus on a face completely. Yeah. So it's, you can, like the mint green is just not very obvious in the spool. I will try to put a picture of this when I'm done with it, maybe on Instagram, where I can definitely get much better focus than I can get on my spool on here, because even when I cover my face, it still just does not want to focus. One day I'll get that fixed properly. If any of you are experts on how to get my camera to focus every time I want it to, I would absolutely love tips on that, because I have looked it up and it still is a little quirky. So this, I didn't actually measure it out. I weighed this afterwards. This is actually about 5 ounces left, so I have about 3 ounces on here. I will probably add a little bit more to this one, but maybe I won't. Maybe I will leave some extra to play with for chain plying. So this one is going to be resting. I will do this one, and then when I'm done, I will ply the two together, and hopefully you will see this as a finished yarn very soon. And alright, so the last project that I have been working on recently is one that I think I have determined I need to frog. So part of my thought process lately, as I have been getting ready for finals and been a little bit frazzled and desperate to start every project that I've ever thought of so that I could have 50,000 other things to worry about around my house, one of the ways I fought back on that was starting a very simple, small project. And I'd seen these quite a few times on the Love and Stitches podcast from Nitty Natty. And it is her pattern. It is a paid for pattern, so there's going to be a lot of details I won't talk about too much. But it is for a yarn cozy. And I just thought, hey, I'm always making socks. Making a couple to hold 50-gram balls will be wonderful. I could use up some of my scraps. They'll help keep the yarns together when they are in their basket, in the car, especially since they're going to end up wiggling around a lot. And so I started on them. And as you can see, like, it's really, really small, so finding, like, the proper gauge, it just seemed unnecessary for me to spend too much time trying to do a gauge swatch, especially since I was working from scraps. It's not like I had a whole bunch extra, so I was just kind of going and measuring as I went, and it seemed like it was within the correct range. I got to the top where I did the little, it's supposed to be a super stretchy I-cord bind off. It's got some stretch. I don't know if I did something wrong, if I did it too tight. I don't know. But when I tried to put it on a ball, I don't know if you'll be able to really see, but it will not stretch enough to go over. And this is supposed to hold a 50-gram ball of yarn. This is actually only like 40 because it came from a skein that for whatever reason was 90 instead of 100. So like I can't even get it around a small one. And of course, by the time I realized that, I was about halfway through the second one. So I'm not going to give too many details, but part of the process is reducing and then doing a stretchy I-cord at the top. So for the second one, I decided not to reduce the amount of stitches because I was so close to finishing. It was like, well, let's just finish this. I'll try a different top, and then if the different top works, I can just pull this out and redo the top, and I'll have them working. So I did not reduce the number of stitches at the top, which is why this one looks a little bit less neat. And then I also went to a slightly larger needle size to do the I-cord bind off. And I'm not really going to be able to do this on camera because I need my lap. I can get it to go on, but as you can see, it's still kind of small. And instead of keeping the ball neat, it seems to be just like pushing it around, which I may have to recake this. So I think my mistake was using the recommended needle size, and even though I was looking and it seemed like my gauge was fine, I kind of forgot her recommended needle size was a 2mm. I tend to do fingering weight yarn with a 3mm. So I figured the 2mm will be good because you want it to be a little bit tight on there. You want it to hold your yarn together, and as you use your yarn, there's going to be less yarn in there. So I was thinking that the recommended size was going to be the smart move for me, but instead I just got yarn cozies that didn't have the give I wanted them to. And I was really hoping I could make these work to see if I even liked using yarn cozies, because it could be that in my kind of bags, the way that I work my yarn, they don't make things neater, they just make things messier. But I can't even really know that because I couldn't make them right. So these will be frogged, probably redone at some point, but the project may be in timeout for just a little bit while I be sad. Alright, so that is all of my finished objects, all of my works in progress, and I briefly thought that I was going to have almost no acquisitions, if any acquisitions, to share, because up until this past Wednesday, today is Saturday, I had one skein of yarn that came in the last 2 weeks, and I didn't think I was going to get anything else in. But then I had my fiber box, my Paradise Fibers Fiber of the Month come in. I ordered a bag for a project bag off Etsy, and that came in. Furls released a new hook, which meant I got new hooks and new yarns. Like a whole bunch of stuff all came in at once. So, sadly, I do not have a short one, but also, not sadly, I don't have a short one for acquisitions. So the first one I have, the one that's been sitting here for a little while, comes from my FanGirl Fibers Muppets themed subscription box. It is a 3-month subscription, so I've been holding on to the first month until I get all 3, and then I'm going to see if there is a pattern that I can make with the 3 colors together. It was advertised as having Kermit, Piggy, and a mystery Muppet. And I had been predicting that the mystery Muppet would be either Fozzie, Gonzo, or Animal. And I assumed the mystery Muppet was going to be in the 3rd month. It was not, but I was right. So the color of this one is Waka Waka. It is Fozzie Bear. And while the colors, they're just not picking up quite right today. I think my lighting's bad. This is definitely a Fozzie colored, and while I might have been really thrilled to have like Gonzo or Animal because of the bright pink or blue, I like getting Fozzie. I like the character Fozzie, and my daughter is actually really excited to see this because Fozzie is her favorite. She cannot tell a joke without telling me Waka Waka. So she was really excited. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm really hoping there will be enough of this for whatever I do and something for her. She's pretty small, so even little gloves or socks, I could probably use a little bit of both. We'll see what I end up deciding to do with all 3. Who knows, maybe I will just make a tiny Fozzie or a tiny teddy bear or something. for her and then not do all 3 into one project. I don't know. Unfortunately, also because she loves Fozzie, I don't have the little card that came with it because it was stolen by the small child who wanted the picture of Fozzie. But this is a 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon fingering weight, 100 grams in the color Waka Waka Fozzie Bear from FanGirl Fibers. The next thing that arrived, or at least the next thing that I can reach, is a cute little bag I saw on Etsy. And I almost didn't buy it because it was like, I don't need a bag, but it was absolutely adorable. And it is just the perfect size for putting a couple of, like a pair of socks in, maybe working on a hat. It's got a nice handle on here, and there's even a little like hook on the inside that even opens so you can hook something in there. The inside is kind of dark because of the fabric, but there's pockets on both sides. I didn't need another project bag, but look at how cute. So this is from Barley Purls. They have an Etsy shop, Barley Purls. I will link below, and I actually do have a pair of socks that I have the yarn caked up, ready to go, waiting to go in this bag until I finish showing it today, to work on the other rainbow socks for my other child who, it doesn't actually matter, but that child happens to love bats, so the fact that her socks will be in the bat bag is just a silly little exciting thing. So, cute little project bag from Barley Purls. The next thing I have right here is my fiber of the month from Paradise Fibers. So, this month's theme was Tiptoe Through the Tulips. I'm not gonna lie, this does not give me tulip vibes when I looked at the yarn together. So it came with a bag of fiber locks. I know we're gonna get so much glare, but it has bright greens, mossy greens, and a couple different shades of purple. And for me, this was like Joker, Beetlejuice. I mean, I could definitely see flowers, especially when you look at like, oh, right there. Pictures of flowers they have. Like, there's purple flowers and the greens, I can see that. But then when you combine it with the other fiber that it came with, I mean, come on. Deep black with the purple and green. To me, this is definitely a little bit more dark, not spring. I'm very okay with it being something dark, not very spring. And I'm actually thinking this may, I've never worked with fiber locks before. I have some, but I've never done them. I'm thinking this might be something really fun to turn into like an art yarn to make a wall hanging. And honestly, that is one of their recommendations on here, where they will always give you kind of a recommendation of what you can make with it. And I think that would be really fun. Depending on how it looks, it could be something that helps fill some of this white space. It could be something that I make for one of my siblings who happens to really, really love Batman and the Joker. And so if it definitely gives off more of like Batman and Joker look, it may end up going to him. But it's going to kind of depend on how it looks and what it ends up being. It also came with a little bag here that has other fun stuff in it. Let me very carefully pull everything out. So each month, since it started, it also comes with a stitch marker. This month is a little flower that I know is just not going to show up very well because my focus seems to be getting worse as we go on. I have a decent sized collection of stitch markers, and it is largely due to Paradise Fibers. I almost never buy stitch markers separately because every month for several years now, I have gotten a stitch marker from them. So it's really nice because I don't need to get them. Then it also always comes with a bag of tea. This time I got some anti-static conditioning bath. I've gotten this from them a couple months now. I haven't used this brand yet. I have a couple bags from them, but I just haven't gotten around to using it. And then there's always a sticker. This one is a flower. It's usually a little sheep, and their sheep is named Eunice. And then Eunice looks different each time. So this will be going onto my yarn cart where I hold a lot of my stash. So the last things I got, this was just a tiny little find off Amazon. I've made a lot of bees, but the ladybug was so cute, and it was like a $10 kit. I think I've mentioned I'm a sucker for a kit. I don't need it. I'm sure I could make something very similar without the kit, but now I have the kit. And sometime soon I'm going to have a tiny ladybug. Then I also received some more Wander acrylic yarn and 2 new hooks. So, as I mentioned before, I am making my Stitch and Scream blanket using Wander acrylic yarn. They recently released, sorry, so loud. Wow, I should have done that before. So they recently did come out with some new colors for the line, and while I wasn't planning on buying any right now, I knew I was going to need more for the blanket, so I had some colors just sitting in my basket for whenever I put in another order. Each of these 3 colors I got 3 balls of, so they will each be able to make a square in my blanket. This is the color Atlantis, the color Caspian, which, holding it a little farther back, seems to be helping with the correct color. And this is the color Foundry. Furls does have a pattern magazine, Foundry. I'm not sure if that's what they named this after, but if you subscribe for a year, you can get a limited edition hook that is only available for subscribers of that magazine. Last year I did it, and this shade of gray was about the color of last time's hook. Apparently they have a new hook for this new time around. So hopefully I'll be able to get that when I resubscribe to the magazine, but I have not seen what that one looks like yet. So I'm not sure if this was named after that magazine. It would make sense to me, but who knows. So those are the 3 colors of yarn I got. And the real reason why I ordered them, and is going to be so sad if it will not focus, is because they released a new line of their Streamline resin hooks. I don't need new hooks, but I love the colors they do. So usually when they release a new color, I get 1 or 2 in that new color. And then I actually have a whole wall in my craft area that I have them hanging up on the wall so that when they're not in use, they are still displayable, because I love the colors. I think they're beautiful. This new color is called Borealis. And of course, because everything is going to be super weird with the colors, you can see these on the Furls website much better than I'm able to show them to you right now. But it has got purple and green, and weirdly matches really well with the yarn that the fiber that I recently got. And it is, I believe, based on the Aurora Borealis. So I got 2 hooks. Sorry, I was not watching my time very well on that, and my recording stopped. So I got 2 from this line. I don't know how well you can see, but because they're all resin, every single hook is a little bit different. So this one's got green at the top and goes down into purple. This one has purple on the top and goes down into green. I ordered 2 sizes that are not sizes I commonly use, but it also means they're not sizes I have a lot of. So I have a 9mm or a size N, and a 7mm or a size L. And I just like having pretty hooks. For one, it makes me a little happier when I am making my projects and I can look and just be, it's just a nice little touch. Investing in quality tools for something you love, to me, makes a lot of sense. And if they can be quality and beautiful and just make you a little happy, like if that is something that you are able to do, then I think you should do it. Everybody has their little thing they'll splurge on. For me, one of them is pretty crochet hooks. So that is all of my acquisitions, all of my current works in progress, all of my finished projects, my spinning. Yeah. And even the project I'm going to be getting rid of. So that was a lot, but over the next little while, so I have my final in my class on Monday, so wish me luck, everybody. I feel prepared, but you know, there's still that background anxiety of, I've just been in this class for 9 weeks. Did I learn anything? And of course I know the answer is yes. Yes, I did. I did learn things. I've been doing well on my quizzes. I've been doing well on my homework. I could just study, you know, refresh everything. I don't need to stress. I know what I'm talking about. But then there's just that background voice that keeps going, yeah, but do you? Do you? And unfortunately, it's hard not to wonder when your brain asks, do you know? Because it's your brain. If anybody knows if you know what you're doing, it should be your brain. So my final will be on Monday, and then I'll go right into my next class. My next class is a short one, but because I'm hoping to finish all of the school and field work before the end of the year and test for my next certification, no breaks for me, right into the next class. But that is also why having all of these projects is such a good thing, because when I am very, very stressed with work and school and family, I can sit down and I can make each stitch, and just one stitch at a time, put one stitch in order every time. And before you know it, you have your project done, and it's a little thing. But those are the little things that, for me, are important. It's very good for your mental health, and who doesn't want to be able to walk out and be like, yeah, I made it. I've also done a little bit of sewing over the last couple of weeks. I may or may not do more sewing in the next little while. Sorry, yarn's falling on my foot. I made a blanket that my 5-year-old helped me design. I would have had it to show, but unfortunately she was watching me every single moment as I made it, and getting it back from her even for a little bit to show was not going to be easy, and then it wouldn't have really shown in the frame. I did film the process because it went from her drawing a picture to me turning it into something I could turn into a pattern to an actual blanket. So I'm hoping to be able to edit and voiceover on that one and put that out, so hopefully you'll see that soon. I will have some family visiting soon, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be back next week and do 2 in a row, or if I'm going to be back in 3 weeks, because the next week I would normally film is the week that somebody's going to be in town, and I'm not going to step away from family and try to find time to do all of this. It just doesn't seem like it's a practical thing, and if somebody's coming all the way here to visit, me going up and shutting myself in a room when I could rearrange that around it just doesn't seem like the best plan. So you will either see me in 1 week or 3 weeks. We will really see how much I've finished in the next week. If I have a lot of progress to make on things, then you will see me in a week. If not, then you will see me in 3 weeks with a whole bunch. And hopefully either way you'll see me back saying I passed my final, I'm on to my next class, and I am still doing good. Until then, as I am babbling a lot, and I'm going to have to rewatch this in order to edit it, I think I'm going to end it here before I continue to babble. As you are in your life for the next few weeks until I see you again, happy making, and take care of your mental health too. Take the breaks when you need to, and make every little stitch as you need to. Have a wonderful time.